After the recess, everybody seems to be smiling, and I don't know how long it'll last, but here we are. So last thing was unfilled positions, hiring freeze or eliminate positions, and that discussion.
Okay, a few thoughts. First, as we talked about, a hiring freeze could keep us from spending money, but doesn't change the budget, doesn't change your bottom line. On eliminating positions, I've given some more thought to something I said near the end, that we do have authorized positions in roads, and it's been a very, very long time since we've been fully staffed. If we're going to do something, that would be my very strong recommendation, is eliminate 8 of those positions, which would be 1 crew, savings of about $400,000.
Eliminate which positions?
8 roads positions. And not because I don't think we need them, but because we never get them full. In fact, I think we typically have 10 or 12 or 15 of those positions open. On other positions, we have the list of vacant positions coming up to you any second now. I think, if we want to explore individual positions, I would try and steer you away from trying to do that right now. Trying to do this on the fly concerns me. You don't have a lot of time, and like many things, there are things to understand before we make easy decisions. We don't need that position, or what it's going to mean if we don't have that position.
I guess my question, well, a couple questions. One, in the past, departments have traded positions because, pick one, HR had an open position they weren't ready to fill, and Economics Development needed one, so they swapped. And that's happened. Secondly, let's say we eliminate a position, and September, the road positions, they said, we really need 2 more people, whatever. This is an awful fall, pick something. They can come to us, and we can authorize that, or do we have to change the budget?
You could authorize it in that fiscal year. You would need to change the plan, the next budget and the plan, because it wouldn't be anywhere. That's one of those places where we can pay in 25, you can pay for it out of the reserve for contingencies, but that doesn't pay for it in 26
Moving
and
forward,
beyond.
yes. But so it's, if we eliminate a position that in 3 months somebody thinks they need, it's not, we haven't killed it, we've just made it a little harder.
I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
So going back to what you said about Department of Public Works, and I don't know if you're in a position to answer this or not, but so the Department of Fire and EMS, as an example, we don't have enough people. We're trying to hire people. So people have to be held over and work overtime, which is a way to, I guess, save money, but a horrible way to treat people, because eventually people just get burned out and don't want to be here. So as far as the Department of Public Works goes, it sounds like there's sort of there's a crew, if you will, that we've just never been able to find enough people for. Are they having to do that right now in Department of Public Works as well? I mean, are they having to utilize overtime to get things done, which again is great for some people because they can make extra money, but in the long run, it's not really how you want to operate.
I don't know.
Just curious.
Overtime in roads, is there?
Not right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is no.
Okay.
I think this becomes more a matter of, we're not using overtime to get everything done that we think we should be getting done. We're just not getting everything done that we should be getting done. And one really easy to understand example, we mow alongside of county roads. You can only mow as much as you have people to be able to do it. So arguably, without these people, we're not mowing as often as we should.
And
Well,
didn't we recently make a decision to lessen the mowing as well because of less positions, or?
It wasn't recent, but yes, the
Yeah.
county mows only a couple times a year along the
Right.
roads as opposed to the 4 times a year that
Right.
it used
I
to do
mean,
20
yeah,
years
so we
ago.
were doing it, we lessened the folks, therefore we lessened the service.
Right.
And that just has to be understood, the less people, the less the service.
And the other thing that happens in construction with road crews, and I'm sure the chief is looking at with EMS some too, is you might send out 4 crews and 2 or 3 of them are one man short. Now, it makes it harder that day and somebody picks up the slack, but you're not paying overtime, you're not, it's not like, in our office, if there's more work, somebody can stay late and do it. You're talking crews, and that's like with EMS too, so, yeah.
Right. And on the list, a good number of them are EMS positions. And I know we're having discussions about what this is eventually going to look like, but right now, I'd find it hard to argue we're in a position to eliminate authorized positions. For now, we still need them.
Well, in essence, our 2.8 probably took the 84 to 60, depending on how the chief works it out.
So some of those have not shown up yet as
Exactly.
authorized positions.
Yes, yeah. Do we want to look at another topic until
Do you want,
What's that?
we get our list?
Oh, I didn't realize you had it.
I'm here, I have it. I didn't want to interrupt, so I didn't know where the conversation was, so.
So you've been holding it.
I have, I've been holding out on you. I don't know how many were printed.
Is,
Hopefully there's one.
Okay, so
These are all the authorized and yet open positions.
And some of this will be a little misleading, like there's a buyer position on here because it has not technically been filled yet, but we are ready to do it.
I also have the printouts of the stuff, the things the county does for the municipalities.
Oh, yes, please.
Hand those out well.
Thank you, Roberta.
And also, and just so you know, there are always conversations going on, like there's a survey helper position on here. We have some new equipment which might allow us to reduce the size of our survey crew. We're not there yet, but that's one that might take care of itself on another path.
so, starting at the top, the administrative coordinator in the commissioner's office, that's Chris?
No,
No? Is her position considered vacant also, or not really?
yes, that's later down, communications manager.
Communications manager.
Yeah.
Based on the paper lately, we need to. So what is the administrative coordinator?
I thought we eliminated all the extra administrative coordinator positions, so I'm sort of surprised to see that on there.
Is that the individual that's supposed to make me look good? Is that the problem?
We weren't supposed to talk
They
about
failed
that.
at that.
They quit.
If you want to feel good about
So I
yourself,
would question that
I think
one.
you could eliminate that. I give you permission. Because I thought it was eliminated already.
What are employment consultants, and why is one of them noted as being missing?
The person's not missing, that's a project code that's missing. Don't worry about that. That's
Okay.
just something internal to, we lost them along the way, no.
But they work in workforce development.
Yeah.
They're all grant funds, right?
And they're grant funded, yeah, right. They're grant funded. As is the youth program specialist.
Correct.
So what is the significance of when it says missing?
Just that, that's a project code, it's just, I.
How to know which budget to charge a project to.
Oh, gotcha,
That's all it is.
gotcha.
And where does it say that it's grant funded, except for you knowing that it's grant funded?
We just knew that.
Okay, so those that are grant funded so far, you said youth program
Oh, wait,
specialist?
that's Mike Fowler's position, that administrative coordinator position.
Oh,
That's why we left it
got
open.
it.
So don't get rid of that one.
But the employment consultants, are all of those grant funded?
Yes.
Then, the youth program specialists also grant funded? Okay,
And those are probably the only ones on the list.
okay. Until you get to the next one. No, I'm kidding.
No, I could be wrong.
So all the firefighter through paramedic?
This is what I was saying, I don't think we can even consider eliminating those now, because, you've already eliminated funding for what would have turned into additional positions. So this would be another cut to EMS on top of the one that you already made.
Human resources technician and office associate. What exactly does a human resources technician do? If you don't know, that's okay.
I don't know specifically what that position is. But a technician would be, generally speaking, a closer to entry-level job than some of the other jobs.
Now, that one specifically says, if you look over at the fourth or fifth, whatever column, it says benefits, so it would be something associated with the people who administer the benefits. That's the closest I could come.
And then the office associate, I'm going to imagine, is pretty much what I would imagine it would be.
No, that says personnel services. So that's a group of folks, used to have 4 or 5 of them. Now I think we have 2 of them. And they're basically administrative folks who work anywhere in the county as fill-ins.
Okay.
So if we have, 2 or 3 staff out of the commissioner's office, we can ask for a personnel services person, and they come in and they help answering the phones and the filing and the, day-to-day operations of keeping and any department can do that. So there are sort of internal
Floaters.
floaters. We call them floaters as well, yeah. So
The HR tech was added in connection with expanding EMS, so it's now basically another set of hands in HR to help keep up. And on the personnel services, just a side note, this has been a very good thing for us in terms of staffing the organization. We get people in there who work a lot of different places in the organization, and what happens over and over again is an employee and a department find each other. People find a place where they want to work, and people find a person that they want to work for them. I can't even guess how many people in this building started out in personnel services.
Are any of the positions, and again, I'm throwing something out here, are any of the positions on this list equivalent to something such as an office associate, where instead of having position X, we could have an office associate there instead at a lesser salary, but with the expectation that whoever this was floating around from department to department may finally find a fit somewhere?
I'm not sure I followed.
yeah.
Okay, so are there any positions on this list of positions that previously could have been an office associate? That is to say, if I start out as an office associate and I'm hopping around from department to department based on the need or the day or whatever the case is, but I come to budgeting and I say, hey, I really like that Ted, I really like being in this office, this is where I want to work, and I'm no longer an office associate, I end up somehow part of that department.
Well, they could only end up there if there was an authorized position open for them to move into.
And if they went through the hiring process and were,
So if somebody moves out of personnel services, there's an opening in personnel services, an opening is filled in budget or accounting or something like that. There's not a position created for them because they're moving up.
keep in mind, every position that's created is created by the five of you. Every position that's eliminated, with very rare exception, unless a department just says, I don't need that, I've eliminated a couple, Tim's eliminated a couple, or generally eliminated by you.
I'm just wondering whether or not there are certain positions that might have a higher salary that we could reduce by replacing them with an office. I don't know if I'm being clear, and I
Yeah, no,
apologize if I'm
I
not,
understand what
but-
you're saying now. And I think the easy answer is, if things are working, at least, no. Because we classify positions according to the job that they're doing. So if it's classified above an office associate, it's because the job is more than an office associate.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And if Public Works is missing 15 drivers, how many do they have? And that's, and again, that, I don't know if that was part of your 8,
Yes.
you know, how do they survive for snow removal and some of the time?
Contractors, a lot of contractors.
Yes, which costs us money too.
Yep. And it can be a problem sometimes if we don't get enough people
Yeah.
who want to work.
Do we use, we call them rented trucks, but do we use outside trucks every
Like
week?
just the physical truck?
Yeah,
Or
to haul, in other words, like if we need 2 loads of blacktop, do we let a hired truck bring it as opposed to our truck just because we don't have a driver?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay,
I don't know.
yeah, wow.
I mean, asphalt's a weird one because a lot of the paving is done by contractors also.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
only
yeah.
pave a certain number of actual miles of roads, and it's a pretty small number relative to the number of roads that get paved every year,
Road-
that the county staff pave.
Roads crews paved the remaining portion of Falls Road as part of the get rid of the dirt roads, and I didn't even pay attention to whose trucks were, you know, something like that. You probably don't want a single axle truck even hauling, you know, so it's more cost effective to pay for it delivered.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay. And public safety, they desperately need everybody they can get.
The emergency communications specialist, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Ted, which were the positions under Public Works that you're suggesting we should consider?
I'd say look at the ones that say road operations on the next
Second
column.
page.
Predominantly on the second page.
Okay. So primarily the truck drivers?
It's some operators mixed in, it's a road maintenance worker mixed in, lead operator.
There are 44 truck drivers,
Positions.
positions. Yep.
Wow, so they're missing a third. Wow.
And this fluctuates a good bit. I mean, what we've found, or what I've always been told over time, in the years I've been here, is there are kinds of positions, and these tend to be one of them, where people come chase the dollars. So if it's, you know, somebody's paying $1 more an hour, they'll go there for a while, and then they come back when when that work dries up. You know, sometimes this work is in private contracting, and Commissioner Kyler, you might tell me I'm right or wrong on this, it's seasonal, so they might go to a private company for the paving season, then come back to us for the snow season, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've heard, I've been told that that's.
And you guys probably don't do layoffs because you just do different stuff in the winter.
Yes.
And contractors, it's more and more that they work year-round unless it gets horrible. And it was weird, I don't want to belabor things. We had people that if you didn't lay them off, they'd quit. They wanted to be laid off from the week before Christmas till March 1st, and they'd cut firewood and remodel basements, and they just wanted a break.
Yeah.
And then there were others that would beg you. I was always greedy. I wanted to work and more hours. But yeah, it's wild. So do we want to cut 8 or 10 or so positions?
Well, so, first of all, I was not fully aware of that situation with DPW and the one crew, if you will. I had initially said that, we just don't want to touch public safety and fire and EMS, or public works, but, in this situation, I'd certainly consider it, as long as we can definitively say we're not making it any more dangerous from anybody over there, because that is the last thing in the world that I think any of us want to be a part of, particularly given what's going on. So if we're looking at just, eliminating something that's not going to put people in danger, then I think it's something we might be interested in doing, but otherwise, yeah.
I think this is a place where we can say, in a practical way, this will have no noticeable effect.
Yeah. And again, okay, so I know we're talking about eliminating positions because freezing them, that's just really not a proper term. But I would say again that, depending on what the revenue situation looks like, if it improves, there's nothing stopping us from going back, right, and saying, okay, hold on, now we can take a look at this again and maybe add positions back if the people are even available.
You
So
can
that-
do that.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to make clear as well. My whole argument for some of these reductions or cuts, whatever you want to call them, are that we just don't know what the future holds. And if we give ourselves a bit of a life insurance policy on the future, we can always go back and make some changes.
Yes.
But if you increase taxes, if you raise revenue and revenue comes back in higher, are you going to give it back? Is that the two-way street? I don't think so. So that concerns me.
So I guess in the discussion is, at this particular moment, what positions under Public Works do we eliminate?
I think there were some specific positions regarding this crew you were talking about, and anymore, I wouldn't be able to give you an educated answer on that.
It would just be 8 of these truck drivers.
Okay.
Did you say the administrative coordinator, county commissioner's office is probably eliminated?
No,
No.
it's Mike Fowler.
It's Mike Fowler, and
I'm sorry?
it's money to replace Mike Fowler.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't.
It's
Mike-
Mike Fowler's position, the position that Mike.
Oh, okay.
I
Gotcha.
I was wrong.
And while we're on the topic, I don't think I've had the discussion, but we're still, haven't even
Thinking about it.
begun to look for a replacement for Ms. Weinbrenner yet, have we?
Yes, we have applications.
We have applications, though. Okay.
Sorry, I thought you
So-
were going to somebody else.
Oh,
I thought you were going
okay.
to Mr. Fowler.
Oh,
So, and I don't know the budget as well as I should. So if there's administrative coordinator, is that part of the budget that covers the lobbyist, the office, and the person? That's all in that part of the budget?
Not all in this number, though. This is just,
Yeah, this is no benefits, yeah.
No benefits, right?
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying, it's not twice, that's where it is. That's what your codes are.
yes.
And so are we talking about 8 of the truck drivers or 10 of the truck drivers?
8, I
8.
think is what.
Well, somebody did say 10 at one point.
Oh.
I just said, do you want to eliminate 10?
I said 8 because 8 is what would be on a crew, so it kind of matches up organizationally.
So is that something we want to do, or do you want to do any more than that?
What is the cook assistant for Hashua?
Gosh, well, they have a kitchen.
They have a kitchen. Remember, they, for
We ate
some,
there.
yeah, you've
We
eaten
ate
their
there.
food.
Before we were installed.
Yeah.
So for, what is it, the outdoor school? They're, all year round to
Yep,
feed
gotcha.
the students. And then in the summers, they have programs. They rent the spaces to Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, those kinds of things. So they have a whole commercial kitchen.
And the administrative assistant in Rec and Parks is, I'm guessing it is what it says it is, administrative assistant.
As far as
Is,
I know.
is that something that where was it? What was that one position? Why did I just forget what that was?
Personnel services? Is that where you're going?
Yeah, is that a position that could be subbed out to a floater instead of having a full-time position for an administrative assistant?
So.
If it's a
they're
dumb question,
both-
it's-
They're both full-time positions.
Well, right.
So you'd be eliminating either the flexibility that the floaters give you or eliminating the administrative position. Does that
Oh.
make sense?
Yeah. And how long has that position been open? Don't know.
It's just been recently vacated.
Oh, okay,
The
okay.
position moved to another department.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff Dagens didn't take somebody with him, did he?
No.
Only Lisa, we think.
He still won't call me back. I think I'm getting the answer. So do we agree on the 8, and does somebody want to make a motion, or do you want to look at something else? And the traffic engineer, we keep saying we desperately need. But that's been vacant for a while.
Yes, but as you point out, not because it's not needed, but because we haven't been able to find somebody to do it. And basically, comes down to somebody who can do what we need for the money that we're offering to do it.
Yeah. I don't want to rub anybody's nose in it, but that position makes more than we make. So, does somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to eliminate 8 truck driver 1 positions from the Public Works Department.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What's the impact on that number?
It's about
Aye.
500,000.
What, you said about 500,000? All right, I'm maybe asking a
In the
very,
beginning, he said 400,000, but we talked enough, he made it 500,000.
okay.
We did a little checking while we were working.
Makes sense.
And
This all had to come together very quickly.
Sure, no, that's.
And again, the only reason why I'm asking is because the list of the salary of the truck driver is 39,000, and roughly 40 times 4 is, I'm sorry, 40
Benefits.
times.
And benefits.
It'd be 320 if it were just the salaries, basically, 8 times 40, but you have all the benefits and all that,
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
like, those sort of things.
Now, did we want to talk about services provided to municipalities, or is that just more to think about later?
I think it's a later topic. I don't think we I don't think we can get there
No.
from here, but I definitely believe it's of value to have a serious conversation with the municipalities in moving forward.
We've discussed several times PFAS, but we reduced it last year. I don't know if there's any more appetite to talk about it or change it.
I wish we knew more.
Most of that's one-time money, correct?
Yes.
There is some operating, but
Right, there's some operating money in for 4 or 5 years. So multiple years, but not ongoing.
Right.
And then the capital money will be a project to do remediation.
I mean, the bottom line is the state has to come to grips with how they are going to guide the jurisdictions in mitigating the PFAS problem. And they haven't done that yet. And, you know, right now they're placeholders because EPA, like just said, it was just defined. It's a bad thing, but nobody knows how to deal with it yet. So it's just a placeholder. I mean,
It is, and I understand a desire to not budget it when we don't know that we need it, but we've been through other things, and I can't predict the future, but I feel pretty sure that we're gonna end up spending a bunch of money on this. So somebody's gonna have to put it there someday.
And we've got, how much have we got right now, sort of saved up, if you will?
300?
300, that's it,
Operating side or?
No, the capital.
for
Capital?
PFAS?
3 million.
3 million, okay.
Oh, did I say 300,000?
I think you meant 3 million now.
Yeah, 3 million.
Yeah, and my
What's the
guess
fuse?
is 5 million isn't gonna be enough.
Right. But I also believe, with that said, that there's going to be a lot of grants and opportunity to go after this.
I don't know.
I believe so. Just, this is a serious problem across the country.
Tech support on the fly.
And to the extent that that turns out to be true, I just want to say, with what we give to you,
Yeah.
we're never going to assume that
Right.
grants are going to be available without some evidence that they're going to be there. So we can hope that that will be
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah. That's fair.
So that 500,000, if I'm not mistaken, is a rough estimate that will be adjusted later once all the benefits and FICAs and all that stuff, pensions, and are taken into consideration.
Yes, this is one that we did not predetermine, so we had to kind of quickly pull a number together for you.
And thank you for that, by the way, to you and to everybody.
There you go.
Look at that. Getting better all the time.
Oh, that's better.
That is a lot better.
I was like 11 million.
Like it the other way?
Well, we may have to go back and take a look at some additional positions. This PFAS issue, I've always been a skeptic, but I don't doubt that it's going to be an issue, but the federal government's making it an issue. In practical terms, I mean, how many, you've got the Freedom, how many county water systems are we operating besides Freedom? I'm trying to think ahead practically about how the magnitude of PFAS. I understand you've got the landfill. We just don't know what that means yet.
We have several closed landfills as well.
Okay, you've got closed landfills to worry about in the landfill itself.
And a couple small water systems, Bark Hill, Pleasant Valley. But, PFAS is pretty much everywhere. So the big thing is going to be, where do you have to do something about it? And, I understand your skepticism about, do we actually need to do something? But from my point of view and what I'm bringing to you, I'm not responding to what I think about what we should do. I'm responding to what I think we're going to be forced to do.
And then we also have the training centers,
Which are, I'm sorry,
training facility. I mean, trust me,
which are being.
I wish this was not something we dealt with. I mean, it's kind of like the asbestos of the 2020s, you never thought you'd deal with it back when asbestos was put in place. Now, unfortunately, they're recognizing this PFAS as something that needs to be dealt with. And it's going to be mandated. They just haven't figured out, federal government, hasn't figured out exactly how to define the mandates, because the EPA is just now defining what bad looks like. But we will be mandated to do this. And it's every jurisdiction, it's every state, it's across the country. So that's my thoughts. I mean, trust me, I'd rather not deal with it, but I never thought I would deal with asbestos abatement until I had to take down buildings. So,
And while I certainly, I know none of us really know what's going to come out of the lawsuits, I think it's probably a good idea that we did sign on to them, because something will come out of those lawsuits. How much that is, I don't know, but, it was a simple thing for us to agree to be a part of.
Agreed, but, if you look at the opioid settlement and what that means for us,
pennies.
I don't see any reason to have hopes that this is going to be dramatically different than that. If it turns out that way, great. I
Yeah.
mean, if we budget money for it and it turns out to not be necessary,
Yeah.
put it back to unassigned fund balance, we're no worse off. But I think it would be wildly optimistic to think that the settlement is going to save us on this. And particularly if the settlements are with the state, we've already got evidence on how the state wants to
Right.
divvy up the money, and it doesn't work in our favor.
So, and again, this may be an overly simplistic question, and I apologize for that. What is the difference between a truck driver 1 and a truck driver 2? Is it just level of experience? Is it, okay. The survey helper position, is that similar to the traffic engineer, that's one of the positions that we would rather have and not outsource?
It's a rod man for you. They probably grab a laborer now and have him hold it.
Okay, so two things there. Once we were down so many people on that, we were contracting out surveying, which was not working well for us. The problem is there are people out there who can do surveying, but we can't make ourselves their highest priority. But I mentioned the surveyor helper a little bit earlier. We're not there yet, but we believe some newer equipment might make it possible to do without this position. So separate from this conversation, we might be looking to eliminate, but we're not there yet.
Gotcha.
But even then, in theory, somebody's writing, somebody's driving stakes or driving in hubs, and like I say, you need somebody. I think.
Is the, and this is just a baby one, is the Historical Society, are they self-sustaining or not?
And, I mean, I guess it would kind of depend on what your definition of self-sustaining is, not being smart about that. I mean, they're using, my understanding from previous years is the funds that the county gives them goes towards operating. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I don't really know if I'd call that self-sustaining in that regard. I mean, in theory, I think we'd love to see all our nonprofits be self-sustaining. I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. I mean, we do have some in the county that are very self-sustaining, and they might be involved in limited partnerships through the health department and some other things, but for them, I don't really think so at this point. And that would be probably more of a question to their board or the executive director, but my gut, given what I know from past years, I would say probably not.
But if not, I mean, that's not your responsibility. I mean, we contribute to them, but
True.
we
I know.
don't have to make them
Right.
whole.
Right. But it's easier to, you know, to accept, if I'm gonna take money away from them, that they,
Oh,
as a nonprofit, are self-sustaining.
and I don't know how this will play out, but this is a recent development. They got a major donation that I think changes their position dramatically, but I don't know exactly what that means yet.
How large of a major donation?
I think in the vicinity of $1 million.
Well, then it may be something for us to look at. And we can revisit it after 6 years. I mean, if they got $1 million and we're giving them 50,000 every year, you know, that's great. And kind of going back to, you know, what Commissioner Garin, you were saying, you know, when you get to a point and you don't need the money, let's give it back, you know? And that's whether it's revenue or expenses. So, if, I mean, if they got that much money given to them, then let's,
Now, I'm not arguing one way or another here, just offering some context before we judge too quickly. Yes, that's a lot of money. They have a long-standing problem, though, and they own 3 old buildings, and they've never been in a position to actually take care of them the way they should be. So this is pure speculation on my part, but I have to think that in that $1 million, there's some thought about what do we do with our buildings.
oh, absolutely. But our 50,000 a year is very small compared to that $1 million if it was gifted to them or donated to them. And kind of going back to what you said in the very beginning, it's not our place to determine whether they can handle themselves operationally or not. So,
But I go back and forth with this. There's nonprofits that if they don't get 5,000 more, they might not survive another year. I
Right.
don't know that I want to do too much for them. And then you look at ones where you're getting more bang for your buck, like Union Mills, like the Arts Center, like the Historical Society, and we looked at this stuff a year ago, a little bit on what do we get back from it.
but I mean, yeah, but
And I think if we get back, and then some of them, and I don't know what this donation is, some of those are restricted.
correct.
And I think
That's right.
some of these groups like the little bit we give them because it's not restricted, and so they can use it for operations and some
Yep.
various things they need. So, but it goes back and forth, you know, you feel like,
Yeah.
why are we throwing money at somebody that doesn't need it? Or why are we throwing money at somebody that won't be here in a year?
No, I mean, it's a good point. And I don't know what that donation was. It could have been restrictive to brick and mortar or
Yeah.
something. So,
In this case, I think it'd be, even if you want to look at reducing our funding to them, probably be reasonable to at least give them a chance to come to you with what their plan is before you jump there.
And we talked this last year, I think. We don't want to make it too cumbersome, but just because we budget it doesn't mean we have to spend it. We could still make them come to us and
Right.
talk. before we write the check, correct?
That's true.
Yeah, I think that's the conversation we had last year,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah.
And if you're thinking along those lines, we can get in touch with them, let them know that that's what your thinking is, and we can try and make that happen, before we get to a new budget year.
Heidi, when you have a second, can you scroll over a little bit so I can see 28, 29, and 30, please?
You're not authorized to see those years.
So the Youth Service Bureau, we're giving 1.2 million, and then in addition to that, they're getting another so much with the non-Carol.
No, that's in this number.
That's in this number. Okay, thanks.
Only a small part of what
Okay.
we think of as not in Carroll actually shows up in that budget line. And that's
Okay.
just what's the response, medical response,
Mobile crisis.
Mobile crisis.
mobile crisis unit.
Right, okay.
And the Boys and Girls Club after-school programs. Everything else shows up in another budget now. We just know that they started with
Yeah.
those not in Carroll conversations.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, so looking ahead is certainly, I mean, I know we're focusing on figuring out 25, but also the impacts on future years. Again, look at 28, 29, and 30, and that's staggering. 15 to 23 to 30 million deficit.
Yeah.
And Ted, Heidi, why is that again that the number jumps exponentially in those later out years?
Yeah, lots of things going on. But like I said a little bit earlier, two of the big things would be expected growth in revenue. And you remember, in the first few years of the plan, we have bigger assumptions, or the first couple probably, for assessment growth than we do in the later years. So, and property tax is your biggest revenue, so that matters. Income tax, we have growing at 4% a year. So it's steady growth. It's not necessarily growth that's keeping up with growth in costs. And then some cost change, the obvious one is debt service. We have a couple big projects coming, and that debt service is going to be hitting you later in the plan. And again, I don't want to suggest that that's the whole explanation, but that's some of the easy pieces.
Right, okay, and that does help me make sense of that. The debt service that is coming due in those years, and if this is part of that question that I asked the other day, you can tell me, it's a dumb question, but those debts that are coming due, are those things that we can pay off or pay down ahead of the projected schedule?
No, you can't.
Okay,
Bond debt has very strict rules, restrictions on paying things ahead of time. There is a process called refunding where you actually can get there, but it's not simply a choice to say, oh, we've got an extra $10 million, let's pay off that debt. You have to meet a lot of IRS regulations, and it's not simply a budget decision. It's something bigger than that. And we only do a refunding when we can meet certain criteria on how much it's going to save us by making the change, because it costs something to do it.
right.
The only place where what you're saying might work is if we had another loan of some sort, but if we have anything else, we don't have anything significant.
And then we-
Big debt is,
Right.
oh yeah, and the other big debt is IPAs in the Ag Press program. But that's a known time commitment to how it's going to be paid.
And then we typically go for bonds rather than outright loans, correct?
Yeah, we rarely get loans in this way that most people would think about doing it. Occasionally. in connection, you might remember, in connection with utilities and with the airport.
Airport.
You know, we've talked about loans. Yeah, right, not utilities, that doesn't apply, for the airport. We've talked about getting a loan to bridge the time between us spending for land and the FAA reimbursing us for land. That's not something we could bond. So we had to take that kind of route.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Now, the bigger projects coming aren't financed yet. And can that change year by year? Let's say East Middle was spread out over 3 years. Can you use bond money 1 year and excess fund balance the next year? And in other words, can you soften this maybe if we happen to be, have cash and we soften this in the years leading up to it?
Yes, and a little earlier, I described exactly that. When the General Assembly backed off the governor's proposal for cuts to highway user revenue, for planned highway user revenue, we put that back into the plan, more cash on projects. We took off debt service, planned debt, so that reduced your debt service. You might remember I said that was between, I think, $600,000 and $800,000 a year in the later years.
So in theory, this could get better or worse as we get closer to that time, depending on how projects go and how we decide whether we decide to bond them or use cash.
Yes, it could get better if you have cash available and decide to put it there. Could get worse if you assumed cash on them and then take it off.
But you haven't.
No. Or if interest rates rise beyond what we've assumed.
Yeah, until you issue the bonds, you have a lot of flexibility about bonding
Yeah.
or cash. Once it's
Once-
issued, it's
Yeah, once you issue them. And then,
less flexible.
speaking of that, I am still shocked at how we sold bonds this year. I would have thought it was gonna cost way more.
Oh, the rate we got, yeah, I was surprised too.
It was
Man,
incredible.
That was awesome. Somebody did good. I don't know.
You know, Carroll County historically has sold very well. I mean, there were years before we got our triple A, that we were often selling like we were a AAA.
Wow.
So yeah, it just continues.
What
The
amazed
rate
me,
and the number of bidders, both.
that's what amazed me, was the number of bidders
Yeah.
all within that, shop group was
I think that's
amazing.
generally been the case too. We attract a lot of attention.
Yeah, that's huge. The Visa increase in funds, is that the SCBA's,
No.
that
Where are you looking?
the operating plan?
No.
was
So
that?
that's just their normal operations.
Well,
Plus,
we made a decision. You showed that we made a decision, and it went from
He was looking at his op plan.
4,743,000 to 5,063,000.
Where are you looking?
What they gave us this morning,
Yeah.
what you gave us this morning in course of action 4 and 5.
That was to add, I think that was adding the 300 and some odd thousand dollars that we anticipate because of the reduction of $2.8 million in the overall fire EMS budget for the county. The board put $320,000 back into Visa's budget to help pay for fire apparatus driver operators.
Oh, yes.
That was for people.
Yes.
Yes, we give
Okay.
it to
So
Visa,
it's not
Visa gives it
for-
to them.
Yes, I wasn't thinking about that when you asked.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Okay,
an underlying basic increase in their budget.
right.
And then there's the action to say, well, if we're not going to provide the FADOs, we have to give them something back. And you might remember Commissioner Guerin was questioning that amount, which was, or that is the amount that they would have been getting if we had never considered a different way of approaching it. But it is not enough to actually pay for all the FADOs.
Okay. So where is the SCBA's in this?
They're part of the fire
Is it just in,
EMS budget.
just
aren't
part of the fire EMS?
There is some funding in the capital budget.
Is that what, okay, okay. I mean, we could allocate $1,000 for Powerball every week, but, you know.
Well, everybody's thinking, I wanted to say something at either the beginning or the end, and I missed the beginning, so I'll just say it now. Everybody, I think, knows Jeff Wolfert, who ran with Kelly Schultz. And what rank, do you know what his rank? Colonel. What, 2 Mondays ago, he and that whole group were activated for,
They mobilized.
months?
That's correct. Yep.
yeah, and I just think, I don't know how many people know that, and anybody in that group I talk to, they're like excited about it. You know what I mean? It's awesome.
I would be.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
rather be there than here. I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
just call it
yeah,
like it is.
It's awesome. So, little commercial break.
So, yes, and best of wishes to him and his family. Kids,
Yes,
stay low.
most
That's what it's
definitely.
all about. So, yeah.
He was at the legislative breakfast,
Was he?
and he seemed excited about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think he's anxious to serve the county as well, as if he's got to see it, you know,
And-
in some capacity at some point in his life. So he's sort of torn between all
They,
that. And he's-
they love Carroll County, and I think it's interesting to me, and we've got somebody much older than he is who could tell us how it transitions. He's in more of a managing role. You know, he's up high enough now. He's probably not flying there.
No, he's commanding.
Yeah, he's
He's
commanding the
commanding a unit,
flyers,
yeah.
and I think he's excited about that transition.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there like, what, 30, 40 years ago?
It was the Civil War, it was muskets. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. They're happy to be in Carroll County and would love to stay.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So what's next?
Interesting to try to get us under 10. We gotta find 70,000 to cut.
We all need a goal.
I mean, what will that do?
Get us into single digits.
I have a request for staff prior to Thursday, because we sat here and, again, nothing ever, it's a learning experience for all of us, me included. I'm looking at those vacancies that we send out, not realizing that, you know, those are positions, and behind those positions, there might be 6 vacancies, there might be 2. It's a lot more than just 20 vacancies, but some of them we're not willing to touch. But assuming well, it's a big assumption, but if we're assuming we might not be done with eliminating vacant positions, I would like to take a different approach with what's left and ask the department heads, that's Citizen Services, Economic Development, Comptroller, Human Resources, Information Technology, and Planning and Land Management, if they had to eliminate one empty position, which one would it be? I'd like to know that, and let them have a say if we have to go to another level of this. Because there's multiple vacancies in each department. So if we're not done with this exercise, and maybe we are, I'm only one person, but I'd like to hear from the departments this time. They know better with what they think they can live without. And again, we're talking about positions that are currently empty, but maybe they've only been empty for a couple months, some of them. Maybe they've been empty for 6 months. And who knows? Eliminating some of these empty positions, I mean, it may be wishful thinking, but maybe it just, it's less for them to have to deal with in a lot of ways. Like, I know they'd like to have the people, but now that these positions aren't mandated, they don't have to spend, it's not opportunity cost. I'm trying to fill these positions. They can just be like, well, we're not going to get them. Let's just move on and plan accordingly. So could we do that?
Well, I definitely can't take away that request or even question it. But from my perspective, it's just unfair. It's our responsibility, and we know the staff, and we know the budget. And, I mean, I just feel like our leaders and their directors are working with skin on the teeth. I mean, they are so bare-boned in everything they do. And it's a non-winnable situation for them. And I just feel like it's not appropriate or fair, but that's, like you said, I'm just one guy out of 5 of us, but that's my view on this. I think we need to look at this, at this point, much more holistically and come to grips with whether we are going to move forward with cuts of services that the county's going to do, or figure out a way to bring more money into the county. And that's what I'd like to see done right now. Again, I don't know what services now we want to cut. But-
I'm not suggesting we cut any services. I'm suggesting we ask the departments, because like you said, they do know their departments best, about, they have multiple vacant positions. If they had to choose one to eliminate, which one would it be? I'm simply trying to,
Just don't think they have multiple vacancies. That's my.
they do.
That's what I was looking at this.
I'm just asking the question of them. I'm not suggesting we're going to do it, but if we're going to do it, I'd say we ask the people who know best and not make assumptions. I mean, with the DPW, it was fairly easy because we knew that those individuals were part of a crew that didn't exist. But I'm giving deference to the department heads and just asking them that question, because if I haven't mentioned it 1,000 times already, I'm just trying to do everything I can to avoid a situation where this board raises taxes. And all I'm trying to do is get us to what our revenue is going to look like, a better picture. And if we have to make adjustments at that point, we will. To say you're trying to figure out how to bring money into the county, I'm willing to discuss that as well, but I think what we're really talking about is taking money out of the county and sending it to Westminster, if I'm not mistaken. I want to avoid doing that.
I'm not sure what that
And-
meant.
Well,
Because you stated, I'm trying to find ways to bring money into the county.
Right.
That's not what we're doing by raising taxes on the people here. They're already here, we're taking it from them. Now, I'm perfectly willing to have those conversations about how to make, the county more attractive to businesses and things like that, and that's exactly what we should be doing.
Wait,
well,
just one real quick. I mean, 2 things. One, if we're talking about vacancies, then let's focus on the vacancies and ask the directors that are on these 2 pieces of paper from Chief Robinson on down, okay, which vacancies do you want to consider along with Mr. Bokeh, everybody else? And we, but not across all the directors. Again, I don't want to punt it down to them saying, what don't you want to accomplish? As far as, again, Westminster, it's not about Westminster, it's about Carroll County. And the more streamlined we become in numbers, the less services we will be able to conduct. We can shut down parks. We can eliminate deputy directors. We can do a lot of things. We can salami slice across the board 1% to 2%. There's lots of different ideas. But every one of them, the impact is the less services we provide to Carroll Countyans. So it's not about fattening up Carroll County government. It's not about Westminster at all. It's not about adding so many positions, we're cutting positions. It's about providing the services to Carroll Countyans. And that's it. There's no more to it than that. It's about service to Carroll County. And I can't say that enough times. It's,
And I think between both of your comments, we got to look at everything. We owe it to the taxpayers. But again, I think we ought to ask them what vacant positions they give up and what it costs, what we're losing. But Commissioner Guerin, 3/4 of this list is public safety, fire and emergency, and public works. So do we ask them again, or do we leave them out?
Yes, I appreciate you saying, and I want to clarify, no, we do not ask them. I was specific with the ones that I mentioned only.
Yeah, we hit public works.
Yeah, we did, and public safety.
And public safety and fire and EMS.
And I'm not, I mean, nobody up here has ever suggested cutting a service yet. I don't think we have. Maybe we should, but we haven't. So this constant comment regarding services, no one's talking about cutting services. I'm talking about going back and looking at vacant positions.
well,
And if we might be able to eliminate them from our budget for now, until we have a better idea of what our future holds in terms of revenue, because it's not looking good right now.
services come from the people that are in our government. So if you take away the people, you take away the services. So that's why I mentioned services. If we're one deep where we were two deep, your expectations of whatever topic it could be, permits, inspections, instead of 10 days, it could be 15 days, which costs that construction worker or team money in waiting for inspections and permits. It's about everything we do is about services. People run the services for Carroll County government to the county. And so it's not about adding people just to add people. It's about adding people to add the appropriate services for Carroll County. So if you're willing to look at which positions should be cut, then just by doing that, we end up lessening the ability to conduct a service or eliminating a service. And we just have to own up to that. If that's what we want to do, then we have to own up to lessening the ability to conduct a service or eliminating a service in its entirety.
And I understand that, but again, back to the question, let's say, and who knows, let's say HR would say, oh, wow, I didn't realize we still had a human resources technician in there. We added one last year. You can eliminate that. There could be just oversights too. I think we got to look, and your arguments we still might not eliminate anybody. But I think we gotta ask.
My only concern is just because the position's open doesn't mean it's not necessary.
Oh, I understand.
Which is why I thought
Yeah.
the fairest thing to do would be to ask them.
It would be easy to say, let's eliminate everybody on this page,
Yeah, nobody's saying, yeah.
but that would be wrong.
Yeah, that's why I want to ask the question, which I think is perfectly reasonable, to ask the department heads that.
And 2 more positions, and we'd be under 10 million, and Commissioner Vigliotti would sleep tonight and not beat his dog.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Frankie's
You
coming to
want
get
it
ya.
below that.
Well, I certainly would like it below that. If you mean singing to my dogs, then, well, that's,
He would avoid having some strongly worded conversations with his dog.
There
is
you
what I
go.
think we were.
very strongly worded conversation.
Oh, my.
So do we need a motion to, send out an email to department heads?
I don't think we need a motion, do we? We ask, and you
I'll
guys
ask
will look at
staff to
it.
do that.
I mean, hopefully it won't take long. I mean, we've already got everything broken out here.
It'll take Public Works a while.
No, but, well,
Public Works has most of these
What
positions.
else? Everybody must
Yeah.
have something else on their wish list.
I guess so.
Public Works is,
But again, public safety, not asking public safety. I just want to clarify that. I think that was the, yeah.
Yeah.
If
Are we-
we
are
were to
we-
ask Ms. Hawkins to which communication specialist to remove, I think we'd hear from her right away. Because we know that they're
You
hurting.
might
pretty
answer
bad.
us this afternoon.
Yeah, and so is Chief Robinson. They're hurting. It's tough. It's tough out there.
This,
We were not going to ask Public Works, right? Because we've already eliminated, or do you want to ask Public
Well,
Works?
given they have so many, I guess it wouldn't hurt to ask them as well. But they've already taken a hit.
So let's say that takes us down another $1 million. How are we gonna deal with the $9 million deficit? I mean, that's the, there's the elephant in the room, and it ain't gonna take us down $1 million, but say it does. How are we gonna deal with the $9 million deficit?
Yeah, that's probably the case. I don't know if it will take us down that much money. We could.
Just make that hypothetical and deal with $9 million.
The only way it gets you $1 million is if you force people
I know.
to do it.
So I know,
But
I
the-
get it.
point is,
Let's just deal with it.
Yeah.
And dealing with a hypothetical. And it's a $90 million in red. How are we going to get us to zero?
Well, if there are no more changes to expenditures, there are only two possible answers here.
Right.
One is raise taxes, the other is use one-time money.
So since the question was asked, again, I keep adjusting my talking points here, and we got to look at transit again. I don't know how far we're going to go with discussions with them, but if we were to explain to them that they're going to take a hit on some funding, and it's going to force them to reimagine how they're operating in FY '25, because it's obvious we've got to make some changes anyway going forward. I've already brought up one capital improvement project in particular, but nobody seems to want to touch it, so that'll stay on there. And
Well, Commissioner,
we
you
decide to
talked-
raise taxes and keep things like that on there, then that's the decision the board makes. Hopefully we'll get some more information regarding positions. If we really want to, we can just take PFAS off again as well, because I'm just not convinced that now's the time to be taking $1 million and putting it there if we're struggling with getting down to a certain point.
that doesn't help operating.
Yeah, what
It helps-
project?
it helps-
I mean, the
okay.
road doesn't deal with the operational
It
budget.
helps operating because whether we like it or not, we're going to have to use one time, we're going to have to go into our current balance to address what we have here. So either way, it gets adjusted to that bottom line.
So
Either
so
way.
you're saying you want to use one-time money to put on top of this? That's what, at the end of the day?
I think we're going to have to. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
There's one of two ways of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Revenue or using one-time money. So your recommendation is one-time money.
You get down as far as you can go, and if you have to do that, you do that, as opposed to raising taxes. Sure, I mean, I'll take that deal any day.
And then the
And la-
following year, it's going to be more. That's the problem.
Well,
Is
it is the problem, because if we raise taxes, we're still having the problem for next year. So, I mean,
you won't.
yeah, I think we do. I think we do. And again, we still don't know what the revenue picture looks like. We're operating under the assumption that we've got to make all these decisions by the middle of May. All we have to do is make the best decisions we can make by the middle of May. There's still another 11 months out of the year, and whether we like it or not, we may spend the next year just dealing with budget. I mean, if we have to do that, we'll do it. And then again, it pains me to say it, but we're looking at a 4% increase for staff, and if we're trying to get down to a manageable level, it might have to be 3.5, and that's perfectly reasonable and perfectly acceptable.
Well, I don't believe it's perfectly reasonable or acceptable, but the thing is, we've been going down the path of using one-time funds for years. The last board, the board before that.
I know.
And it's gotten to a point where we've continued to increase the amount we're using of one-time funds. Last year, I think it was $9+ million. This year, it's going to, let's say it's $7 million. Take away all of transportation, take away all of these additional positions, and let's say it's $7 million. It will increase over time where we will not have that money available to put on top. So therefore, you got to come up with something for money coming in. I mean, it's impossible not to. You got to balance the budget. So it's either going to be a sticker shock with taxes 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, or it's going to be you put taxes in place now, you do the best you can with what we have, you don't raise taxes for the next 10+ years, and you continue moving forward. I mean, that's an operational path forward, not using capital dollars, putting it on top of operational, because you can't provide the years out. I mean, it sucks. I've done this 5-6 years, and it's the same answer. And I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. And I'm finally to a point where it's like we got to do something where we can operationally deal with next year and the years that follow. And if we put one-time money, we're just masking a problem that's going to cause a larger deficit over 26, 27, and by 28, it is a cliff that's too daunting. And all of us may be gone, but whoever comes in next, it's going to be a serious sticker shock. That's the problem.
So
Heidi, I'm sorry, can you pull up the surplus revenue page, please? I'm sorry, thank
The-
you. While the discussion's going on.
So, listen, a lot of us, we all understand what a dire situation we're in, and talking about the fact that it's decisions of prior boards doesn't matter. Buck stops here with us. I think it's something that none of the 5 of us want to spend too much time talking about, because it is what it is. But the only thing that the 2 of us might agree on, if I can persuade you to agree with me on this one, is that if we're going to get out of this at all, it probably is going to involve both. It may very well involve both, but just raising taxes isn't going to do it. You've got to rein in the level of spending as well at the same time to even have a chance. And all I'm suggesting is that given our surplus, given the revenue situation and how, again, unexplainable it is to me, and I may just be alone in that,
No,
how
I
it's gone
agree.
down.
What you
I'm
just
just trying
said,
to advocate the bare minimum for now.
I agree. Everything you just said, 100% I agree. It's going to be a balance between both. 100%. The challenge is that we look at the tax situation and that type of revenue and have the ability to do it once and not revisit it like other folks every 2-3 years or 1-2 years. I mean, that's why we've been very proud to have held taxes for 10+, 20+ years. I want to be able to deal with this one time for the next 10+ years.
Okay,
But the problem is, if we do that, it's got to be significant enough that it'll get us somewhere, because if not, we're going to be revisiting this in the next couple of years. So I can balance one-time funds and revenue or taxes in a way that gets us to where we want to be, as long as we do not revisit taxes in the next 6 years.
so, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I've got some stuff, individual stuff I'd like to look at. And-
If I could just-
and
Yeah,
I
'cause I
good
think we're
questions
there.
for that. Go ahead.
I apologize,
No,
again, I don't agree with everything you just said, but I do agree with one thing. If you're going to do it, you better do it once, and you better do it right.
Yep.
And I just don't feel as though this board's made that case to the public as of today. And if we're looking at some of the elected officials who were in front of us, who've been around a heck of a long time, they might have said, sure, go ahead and do it, but you better explain to people why. And I just don't think that dialogue has been taking place
But that's
with the
why
county, and it's just probably, it's too late to do that
Well,
now, and that's
why
a
we
year
had-
long.
That's why we had the conversation with the agencies. That's why I was pushing it with them, saying, listen, you guys represent a large amount. That's why with the Board of Ed, with the sheriff, with the state's attorney, with the courts, saying, listen, here's the situation we're in. And we are in a position where fire EMS, the blueprint, have just overwhelmed the county and the county's expenses. So are you looking at the ability of raising revenue as palatable? And overall, the message is, well, it really stinks, but yes, because there's a purpose in doing it. And again, and we left it at that. My point is, I can see using one-time funds, but it's got to be balanced with taxes, but the tax situation has got to be looked at as using it only one time. And if we commit ourselves to looking at taxes only one time for the next X amount of years, it could, again, 5, 6, whatever, with that intent in mind, then that is reasonable to everything we're doing. But it's got to be a balance, and I agree with you there. Trust me, I don't want to raise taxes, but we dug a hole, and we're either going to keep digging, or dirt's going to be thrown on top of us, or we're going to be able to surface it with these services, with the best fire EMS, the best sheriff's department, the best schools, and all the other quality of life services we have, by balancing this budget with revenue and one-time funds, knowing that we're going to only put revenue in place one time over quite some time, which hasn't been touched in so many years, so.
okay, I would like to see us talk about facilities, and some of this we've talked about. Facilities, fleet management, Hashawa, Arts Council, and, oh, you took it down. We took $2.5 million out of ongoing money for Ag Press. Is there any appetite to put $2.5 million in one-time money into their budget for this year?
I apologize.
We took $2.5 million out of Ag Press of ongoing money.
Yeah.
Do we want to replace this year's with some one-time money from the fund balance, $2.5 million? Or do we want to?
Why deal with that right now? Do we need to deal with that right now?
Well, if it's going to be in the budget, we need to deal with it between now and 4 o'clock Thursday.
We do?
Yep.
That's,
Heidi, can you pull up
and
the
Thursday is
surplus,
it.
pull up surplus again? Thank you.
But those are the 5 things I'd like to talk about. And like I say, fleet management we talked about, but you look at Public Works, facilities and fleet management are significant. Now, I think
Yeah.
they're both probably lean, but we don't know if we don't look at it. Hashawa, I love Hashawa. That's about a third of Rec and Parks budget.
Right.
Is that all viable? And we
There
even
is
talked about their
revenue.
part-time cook.
There is revenue associated with
I
Joshua. too.
understand, but I'd like to see all that.
Yep.
But but if nobody else wants to look at it,
Well-
that's just things I'm suggesting.
Ag preservation, if we use one-time funds for FY '25, is what you're suggesting. Did ag preservation, did they use all of the money that was allocated for them this past year?
in any one year, I can't answer that, but generally speaking, yes, it gets
I don't
used.
believe it.
We don't build a balance.
And they implied, I think, that they slow some things down.
Yeah.
Worried about money. So I don't want to see them do that this year.
Well, I felt the same way. I thought there was like a wait list or something.
In this fiscal year, there are a lot of requests.
There was, wasn't there?
So they're
Yeah.
So I think we need that money
So-
next year.
Currently,
Do
they've
we
got,
need it 2 and 3 years from now? I don't know.
currently they have, and this is from, let me see, this was from March,
fairly recent.
fairly recent. They had 6.7 million current funding available, and they have a number of applications in process, which most of them have been in front of us. That totaled out at 5.8, which gives them 940,000 available balance, and then they're also anticipating 933,000 and change back from MALF. So they're looking at 1.8 back from MALF on top of those projects that they're still working on.
Wow.
So I guess the question would be, if they're looking at 1.8, plus you've got what we put in anyway, plus the match, you're looking at, what would that be?
6.8. If it was 2.5 plus 2.5 plus 1.8.
Well, wait, what's our match with the state? That's,
1.3.
Oh, I apologize.
so the 1.8 and the 1.3 would give us, what, 4? Did I do that right?
3-1.
3-1.
3.1. And then you're looking at another 2.5 hypothetically if you went that route.
So 5-6.
I think the question is, we did that last year, and I'm not saying that's good or bad. We did one-time funding last year.
Did we? I didn't think we did.
Yes, the last day we did.
Part of it
we
or all
patched
of it?
We
Yeah.
patched it last year. Now, ironically, 10 years ago today, we were at 65,000 acres. And today we're at, what is it, 80-some thousand, give or
Around
take?
80.
So, I mean, we've made significant headway. I guess the question I would have, and I mean, I'm a huge proponent of AgPres on any given day, but I guess the question I have, it's $2.5 million, and we're looking at, what is it right now, 10 and change? So whether we took it out of one time or not, we're still dealing with a $10 million deficit. I mean, I'd rather see us get down to, virtually nothing in the red and then have that thought if we want to have it. I mean, my concern is, we're sitting here banging our heads against the dais, so to speak, trying to figure this out. I don't know if I want to be putting more money out right now. I mean, that's my concern.
It's one-time money, and there's no way we should use that as ongoing.
Right. But,
And I'm talking about 10% of it.
yeah, but what I think Commissioner Gordon says is they're basically covered. They have
Yeah,
Well,
enough funds.
I mean, right now, they're covered for everything up to date, plus they got that 3.1, plus they'll get the additional match. I mean, my biggest concern is if we're just looking at numbers, which is what we're all trying to do, is get to 0, that puts us to what, 13?
No.
12 with the,
No, it
no,
doesn't-
that's
it
right, because
doesn't
it's one
change the
time. No,
bottom.
you're right, because it's one
Doesn't
time.
change the bottom,
Right.
it changes the fund
It
balance.
changes this.
Yep.
And that's why I thought,
Right.
yeah, gotcha.
I just have reservations about doing it in general with anything at this point. I mean, and I know Commissioner Rothstein has said it countless times, and I've agreed with him. I think mostly, I'm trying to stay away from one time as much as we can. I know we've made some exceptions to that.
Yeah.
To me, that's a perfect place for it. They're only gonna do next year's Ag Pres one time. And then again, I think too, your point's well taken, if they're in a little better position than at the end of next year, then maybe we back it off to 1.5 or 1 or 0. Maybe we let it like it is, but I just feel like we keep, or at least I keep telling them, I think it's a general consensus, don't slow things down because you're
Right.
worried about the money. We
Right.
want Ag Pres, we want all this happening, and I don't know if we're giving them a message of, oh my gosh, we might not get the money. I don't know.
Well, we just don't want, we also don't want to nickel and dime away these funds.
Yep.
I mean, that's, to your point, that's my concern just in general. It's 500,000 here, it's $1 million there, and the next thing you know, we're at X.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's something you want to set on the side and maybe pick up on Thursday and kind of see where we are, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe not.
Yep.
I don't know.
What was your other topic?
We sold that building for 2, so.
Yeah.
No, it's, yeah, and I'm fine if we talk, like.
Because I agree with
Yeah,
you.
yes,
I don't want to slow down ag pres. I mean, and it's going to get harder. The last 20,000 acres is going to get much, much, much harder.
And maybe it'll
know
slow
that.
down, which means less money each year, and it's just gonna take longer. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I just
Yeah,
value our Ag Press program. I don't
Yeah.
think, when we've got surplus, the operating money is well spent there, but I think the surplus
Right.
one-time money is.
oh, what was the other topic?
Facilities, fleet management, and Hoshawa.
Facilities and fleet management are two places where there is a lot of spending that isn't just about people.
Right,
Just want to make sure you understand, with facilities, it's stuff they're doing to take care of the buildings and property we own. With fleet, it's about our vehicles. With both of them, there's a process every year we go through, not to figure out how we can pay for everything we're going to do, but to figure out what's not going to get done.
Yep.
There is always more to do than we actually do. So yes, you can make choices in both of them to say, we're going to spend less money, but that would have to go along with an idea, there's something we think we ought to be doing that we're not going to do. You know, a vehicle that we believe it's time to replace won't get replaced. You know, I don't know, HVAC's in capital, right? Okay, HVAC is not right, but there's something we're doing in this
Facilities.
building that's not going to
Back
get
under
done.
facilities?
And, you know, with taking care of our buildings, you know, we're really, it's a constant struggle to
Oh,
keep up.
they seem short-manned to me, but it's too big, you know, if we're looking for stuff and we want to talk, before we talk about revenue, they were just some big targets. Hoshawa, I love it. I love the place.
Yeah, and Hoshawa, as Roberta said, there's Roberta. There's revenue
Yes.
Rather be.
of about $350,000. I think if you want to significantly change Hoshawa, it can only be done by saying, we're no longer going to be bringing people there. It would have to turn into park space, like, you know,
Yeah,
another.
well, I agree.
you would have all of Carroll County mobbing you if you ever said that.
Oh, I would hope so, but, because again, to me, that's quality of life and stuff like I say,
a
I've
rite
never
of- it's a
gone there
rite of
where I've been
passage.
disappointed. And like I say, facilities, I feel like in our regular meetings, we hear where they need this, they need that, where they're, helping the sheriff and maybe they need a specialist and fleet management, we just fought for about 2 hours over a mechanic and a supervisor and what we were charging people. So, no, I think that's all probably very tight, but if we're looking at everything, we need to look at everything.
What about technology? Is there any technology in here that we could use one-time funds for? You know, kind of like the school system, they talk about what they like to use and not use their reserve for.
Okay, well, I don't think that's really the argument they're making.
Yeah.
They're saying if we can't get it in our budget,
They'll
then finding
use-
some one-time money is a way to get
Yeah.
something done. I'm sure there is something we could say, yeah, you could pay for one time. But most of what we're doing, even if something feels like one time, is really part of an ongoing thing. Yeah, we have so many of these software subscriptions now.
Right.
You have to pay them every year. You know, there's certain equipment, we don't replace it every year, but we know we have to continue to replace it over and over again. So I don't think any of it is really one time. So you can put one-time money in, but it's another one of those things where you can change 25, but it's not going to change 26 through 30.
Right.
And if it's legitimate one-time expenses, it should be. I've got a way that could save $1 million. Quit making me do these damn little tests and quizzes. Wouldn't that save a bunch of money?
No before it.
I fail them, I think. No, I mean, in all seriousness, cybersecurity, we need it.
Yeah.
And with the cloud and with stuff, I think it's more and more ongoing software instead of hardware.
Yeah, and one specific piece of this, you know, we were talking about the increase in general government was it 211,000, 214,000 was for the migration from Excella to the cloud. You know, nothing we said, oh boy, can't we do that, you know, but here we are, we have to do it.
I brought it up once before, the extension office. You know, we've gotten less out of them over time because University of Maryland is really not putting a lot of effort into our extension office, which is a shame. He's a great guy, but we're just not getting much out of it, so I'm not sure. Because we put almost $500,000 operationally into it.
And we don't have to do it.
Right. He's got the space. Is that leased space, or, I mean, it's in the Ag Center. He doesn't pay for that, does he? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Hope not.
I know, I brought that up at the Ag Board,
Yeah.
and they defended that and soil conservation to the
Well,
hill.
soil conservation, yes.
Yes, but
But
I
I'm-
asked them both, and
Yeah.
we talked about each of them, and,
okay.
you know, they were like, well, it brings this to the county, it
Yeah.
brings that to, I mean, and I think I told you guys, so I said, okay, fine, you're like everybody else, you don't want to cut anything, how we pay for it? And the first guy looked at me and said, you raise taxes, stupid. I said, okay, and then the whole room agreed with it, and I don't think there's anybody in that room that doesn't own more property in Carroll County than I do. Maybe the whole board here, or maybe more than all five of us.
I'm just
So-
think-
So they battled for it, and I thought for sure I'd hear somebody, oh, well, you know, this guy's in whatever. It was nothing negative.
No, they love him, and he's great. But soil conservation, one topic, different topic. Maryland Extension Office, they've been having such a tough time with the University of Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been trying to help them out, doing things, but it is fully discretionary.
And they thought like that was more reason why we should support them, because they don't feel
Okay.
like they're getting it from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you guys beat up anything I wanted to save. What else?
Well, I don't, where were you going with fleet management? What was the?
Well, it's just, it's a big number. Is there fluff in that? Is there, do we spend it all every year? And it's one, and maybe that answers my question. Fleet managing was 11,869 last year, and it's 11,729 but in your last column, so maybe we've cut.
Yeah, and in doing that, that's actually one we had a specific conversation about in the budget office. If we hold them flat, it will mean not replacing something that we believe
Oh,
ought to be
yeah,
replaced.
yes, and you're kidding yourself. You know, it's,
Reserve for contingency. We like to keep it at what percent?
1% is what we,
So right now, it's a little bit more than 1%. If we put it to 0.8%,
you already did take it down.
Took it down by a third, I believe.
Correct.
Which one?
Reserve
Reserve
for
for
contingency.
contingency.
Yes, you did.
2/3 of 1%.
sorry, you're right. Never mind.
Be nice if you could do everything twice, right?
Count once.
And we did take, if I remember correctly, it was a couple weeks ago, but I thought the board voted to use money out of reserve for contingencies for something, and I can't remember what it was. What was it?
Well, we
Oh, in open session?
reduced it.
I
Well,
thought,
in here, for budget, you reduced it on
But
an
I-
ongoing
I
basis.
thought we
but-
had applied it to something.
Radios for the circuit court.
I'm sorry?
Radios for the circuit court. was
That's
a couple
it.
weeks ago.
That's it. How do you remember that?
Good question.
That's scary.
Right, as
It cost $27.50.
22 radios?
That I can't remember.
So we did use some of that money already, okay.
Well,
What-
but that has nothing to do with this.
Oh,
what,
Well, if the point
No,
is that we
we
might
used
need
it.
it.
We used it,
Some of it,
yeah.
that's all.
He's right. During open session, we used,
By 24.
FY '24, reserve for contingency. We're talking
Not FY
25 and
25.
beyond.
Okay, see, and that's what I was trying to figure out. I couldn't remember.
That has nothing to do with this.
Okay,
That
oh,
conversation
My
has
bad,
nothing
because
to
we
do.
are sort of in the both fiscal years right now. I'm sorry.
But FY '24, we had a good balance left.
that's say nice.
And still do.
Yeah. Luckily, we haven't had any
Right.
major
But it's,
emergencies.
how consistent's that been?
In most years, it's largely unspent. It's just we don't know which year is going to be the one that won't be like that.
But when's the
have a
last time
snowstorm.
it was half that or whatever?
That was spent, like a large portion of it was spent. I think Snowmageddon would be one year I could think of.
I'd have to go back and look. And, and it's one of those things, it's very easy to head where you're heading. Well, geez, it's been 6 years, we haven't
Well,
spent it.
yeah.
But then, what happens next year? And without it, it's not like there aren't solutions, they're just less desirable solutions.
Did we apply any money from the windstorm? County?
We had
money?
overtime and
Like-
things.
Like additional, like something significant?
We had extra, at least off the top of my head, landfilling, overtime, and all the things that come along with overtime. Yeah, luckily, some of that wasn't us.
Right.
Like all the expenses that BG&E must have had to
Right.
replace those poles and things back in August. I'm sure there were, our emergency management expenses and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Okay.
I mean, maybe I shouldn't be answering. You guys probably know better.
Yeah, I just,
You're right. Overtime, there's sometimes where, wouldn't be necessarily a windstorm, but, part of a road washes out
Right.
and you have to
Right.
do something about it. Sometimes it's not an actual cost, but, you're using up your resources doing things that they would have been doing something else, if not for what's going on.
What's your thought on our current budget talks? Have, like during the last column here, hold flat, are we creating a budget where it's gonna be tighter? And we
Yes.
might not see as much fund balance next year because we've
Absolutely.
already made it tighter?
Yes, and that's been happening to us for years. We're getting less and less flexible because there's less and less not to be spent. So that last piece, this last column, isn't going to make a huge difference because it's just not that much
Not that much money.
money. But, like if you reduce the reserve for contingencies, like I said, most years it's not spent, so there will be less to not be spent, so it doesn't hit your unassigned fund balance. Yeah, but every time we squeeze out something, that's kind of the other side of it.
And less one-time money left at the bottom line to possibly use in future years. For anything, for any reason.
Yeah.
if we were to come up with a solution, I'm looking at you, but I'm talking openly, to balance or to come up with an equation where we're using fund balance and something dealing with revenue, where we're confident that we're not gonna have to address this again. What would it look like? Knowing that basically we have three real, revenue places to look at, property income and recordation. And then the fund balance of 24,000, or 24 million, I think it was, yeah. So putting part of that 24 million on there and putting it across using this if we can do something creative, but whatever we do creative, like I said, it's got to be one time. Or at least that's the intent.
You mean, for example, such as saying, increase just as an example, increase recordation, increase property tax rate, don't increase income, and then whatever the remaining balance is, we use revenue, surplus revenue to plug the gap? That kind of thing?
Yeah, something. I mean, again, property tax, the last time it was increased was in 1997. In 12 and 13, they decreased it 3 cents total. And then property tax, the last time it was increased was in 06, so 18 years ago.
Income tax.
Income tax, yeah. And then recordation, the last time it was increased was 03. I apologize, income tax was 04, so 20 years ago. So it'd be great if we stick to a 20-year model. I mean, that would be awesome. Not sure we can get there by changing this and keeping to a 20-year model, but if we can keep to a 10-year model, that'd be great. And then apply whatever's necessary for using one-time funds.
How much is going into PFAS this year?
1 million.
Thought it was 2.
I'm sorry, what
For the capital project?
for FY '25, it's 2 million this
2
year?
million,
1 million.
I think.
2.
2 million.
Is it 2 and 1, or is it 1 and 2?
I thought it was 1 and 2.
I thought it was 1 and 2, but I don't know.
3 and 2. It's 3 and 2.
Yeah, it's 3 total, but I thought it was 1 and,
No.
No, it's 5.
3 million is already sitting in the project from prior years. We're adding another 2 in
got it.
25.
Okay, thanks. Well, income tax, by state law, we have a ceiling of 3.20. Currently, we're at 3.04. It was increased from 2.85 to 3.05, which is huge. So, going back to 3.05, which was done in FY04, would give us $1.4 million annually in our operating funds. And again, for someone making the county median, it's about $11 a year. And somebody making $150,000, it's $15 a year. Somebody making $75,000, it's $7.5 a year. I mean, so that hits everybody. Property hits people that own property. And again, the last time it was increased was in 1997, and then decreased 3 cents over a couple years period in 12 and 13. If we're to bring it back to 1997, those 3 cents, it's about $7.2 million. And that would be on a $450,000 house, $135 a year. On a $250,000 house, $75 a year. The challenge is just the word taxes is a horrible word. It's just so difficult, but that's what the cost would be. And then recordation, it was created in 1968, and then 1995, it was increased and 03, it was increased again from $3.50 for 500 to $5 for 500. If we went to $6 for 500, that would be $2.8 million a year. So, any mix of that with the capital, one-time funds, not one or the other, but both, we can put ourselves in a position where we can go well beyond FY '25 and not deal with taxes for quite some time.
What were you showing the median income as?
111?
Okay, I was just curious, because I was just looking it up. The census noted it at 1049.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So-
not
yeah,
trying to split hairs, I was just
No,
kind of curious.
That's okay. Whatever I saw the other day was 111, but
Okay,
if it's 110,000, it's $11 per year. If it's 95,000 income, it's $9.5, $9.50. So let's say median income would be $10 a year then. So
Yeah. Sometimes that depends on who your source is.
I'm not sure what my source was.
And
To
I
be
think-
honest.
I think in credit rating, whatever source we use is actually lower than that.
Yeah, I don't know, but whatever I looked up, it was 111,000, but if it's 104, if it's 100, Mox Nix.
because then, of course, median in Maryland's 94,991, so we're lower as a state.
We're what?
Than the county. The state.
94,900 in the state.
Yeah, we're above.
Yeah, we're above that,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
yes.
Because you gotta remember, I mean, you got Baltimore City in there, you got Baltimore County.
Like median household or median
Yeah.
individual?
Median household.
Household. And I probably, well, I may have been looking at median salary, I don't know. Regardless.
In the ballpark.
Now, I've got a couple sort of related things that lead to maybe a FY '25 solution for you, but I'll come back to that in a second. First, Commissioner Guerin has talked about income tax and what will really happen. First, I think there's so much we don't know, but I think the way to think about income tax is not that FY '25 or FY '24 is going to be so low. It's that why was FY '23 so high? I really believe we got in more than we should have in FY '23, so that affects what comes after. But while that was happening, when you were adopting last year's budget, something that happened was we got to a point, you might remember this, where we said, well, we can't go any further in a way that affects the budget in an ongoing way, but you still had money, revenue, projected revenue in FY '23. And that was largely because of the expectation of what income tax was going to do. And you took some of that money and you put it into, no, I said '23, in FY '24, and you put some of that money into our road preservation program in FY '25. Right now, we have $12.7 million of general fund transfer, which is left over from that idea of trying to make use of that money. We don't have that much now. So you could say that this $12.7 million is the reason for the shortfall. And it's not that easy, but I mean, the two things are both true. So for 25, and I say this is a solution for 25, but it does absolutely nothing for 26 through 30. All this is a path to balance 25. If we took $12.7 million of surplus, put that into FY '25, we reduce our general fund transfer, which means your bottom line in '25 gets better by $12.7 million. So everything else being exactly where it is now, that would enable you to fix FY '25. But again, does nothing for 26 and beyond.
Isn't it, maybe I missed something, but that's just using one-time money. Right?
Yes, but you'd be using one-time money on a capital project.
Oh, okay.
But then maybe going a step further, that's why I keep saying, though, it doesn't do anything to fix the plan. It's a path to balancing 25. So I'm not offering this up as, wow, I think this is a great thing to do. I'm just saying, if in the end, all we're trying to do is figure out how we're gonna balance 25, this might make sense.
Another way to look at that is taking that 12 million and putting it on top of the 24 million, say we have 36 million available.
No.
Why?
You're gonna be reducing your unassigned fund balance
To 12 million?
by 12 million. So,
actually would
yeah,
be 12
so right
million.
to about 12 million, yes.
That's not good.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying that this is wonderful, but we're faced now with a small number
Right.
of all what appear to be
Right.
bad choices.
Right.
This is one that mechanically, at least, might
Oh,
make
yeah,
sense.
no, I understand. If we do that in isolation, you're right. It doesn't do anything further except lessen the one-time funds, which makes it more difficult in the out years. That's why, at this point, if we look at a combination, we can,
And I'm not trying to steer you away from doing that.
yeah,
I'm just saying,
Okay.
if you don't end up there. What we're doing here now, this 12.7 of transfer from the general fund, we really don't have it.
right.
You know, which is why there, or arguably is why there's a negative number. We do have surplus. So that is real. We can touch that and put it in there. Now, if you go to other solutions, I'm not against doing that by any means.
Yeah.
I'm just offering this path.
Okay.
Ted, can I ask, and please forgive me, because again, this may be one of those areas where I just don't have the complete information. The suggestion would be 12.7. So how does the 12.7 differ from the 10.1 that we currently have as a deficit? I mean, what would be the benefit to doing the budget transfer versus putting the 10,069,000 into the budget from surplus? Like, what would the difference be?
In one way, you could say no difference, which is kind of where Roberta was going, I think. But underlying, it makes more sense, though, because what we're doing is replacing a general fund transfer that we really don't have the money for with money that we actually do have.
So does that put us in the black for FY25 if we do
Yeah,
that?
you'd be 2 million to the good.
Could you plug that in just so we could see what that looks like?
I was just heading there.
Thank you.
And it will be as simple as that. FY '25 will be balanced, the other years don't change. Oh, yeah, well, it's actually, it's 12,667, I think. Yeah.
You know, I'll tell you, we didn't go through as much detail in revenue as we did, as we're doing now in the past. I don't remember doing this as much in depth in the last board.
Well, during the overview, we went
We
into
did.
great.
No, I know, but as continuing work sessions, we just never had these conversations. I think some of them were curtailed, and I'll tell you, I won't say I wish I was stronger at doing this or more mature in understanding it, but it would have helped a whole lot, because we were looking at very one-sided solutions. And you recognize it ain't just one side, it's more than one side. Because this, what he just did, that's a one-side solution. That just lessened what's available
Well, and it's,
one time.
my question would be, would you do this at your household income?
No,
Hell no.
I mean,
I'll sell my garage this year to balance my budget, but next year I'm gonna need $1 million more.
yeah,
So the next year I declare bankruptcy. My only thought, back to revenues, what's projected EMS next year? Is it just bumping up to 3% or is it more growth?
In 26, you mean? In 25 or in 26?
26.
That's what I thought you meant, in 26, yeah. I don't think
Yeah.
there are any more.
If I did it right, last year it was about 21 million, this year it's 27 million.
Right.
So it went up 6 million. And for something the last commissioners didn't plan on how they were gonna pay for it, if we're not even covering half of what it costs this year by tax increases. And I think, and again, I've told people, do we need EMS? Yes. Can we afford it? No. So we either need to pay for it, and we don't pay for it by patching up one-time money and being further in the hole.
As things stand, as of what we brought to you, it'd be less than $1 million increase from 25 to 26. That's complicated by you having reduced it, so I'd have
Yeah.
to think through what that means. But we're not talking about the same kind of increases that we've had the last couple of years.
Right, 'cause I don't believe there are any, there might be some adjustments, but I don't believe there, the
It's not jumping like it did.
25 is the third year of the three-year transition.
So it might go up $1 million, or if we were totally wrong and regret reducing it, it might go up 3 or 4 million.
But to your point, the fire and EMS community will ask me, and they've asked probably you, okay, well, what's next? Because the numbers aren't in our favor, obviously, at the station level in
Yeah.
terms of the volunteers. So I think you ask a good question, and it's another one of those things, I think, on the list for us to
Well,
have a serious conversation about going forward, because are we done? Probably not.
Well, if we patch the budget this year with one-time money, we're saying you're done, because we're not going to be able to afford it next year.
Right.
It's,
Yeah,
it's,
Certainly, the future
yeah,
needs to
before
be
we cut
discussed.
it, it was over 30 million
Yeah.
this year, and
Yeah.
You know, and if we're gonna think about adding more money beyond the plan next year, then there's really no point in reducing the funding this year.
oh, I agree. I don't think we should. I mean, I'll stop there. I hope data gives us some good feedback. Looking at me and saying, if you don't throw money at it, people are gonna die, they don't understand. They can't spell data.
I mean,
It's, you know, we gotta really look at the real thing, and in Utopia, we could have 30 people sitting in each fire station waiting to go out and feel safer, but we're not in Utopia. We need to look at what it is, and like I say, throwing 30 million at it, well, Yeah, we've thrown over 50 million at it so far. 3 years ago, was it any?
Maybe a couple million.
3 years ago, was it in the budget?
Well, we were funding Visa. So we were funding Visa
Visa, yeah,
prior.
and I didn't count Visa in this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
might have had the chief in then.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
3,
The
4
Visa
years ago.
wasn't,
Previous chief was in there. and
He was
Vi-
4 years
Visa,
ago.
the
3+.
volunteers did a great job, but that wasn't sustainable. I think everybody recognizes that, but where does it stop?
I think we started my first year.
And I
In
think
the
we need to
budget, didn't
fund
we,
it.
or
And
no?
and I'd
When
rather,
we actually budgeted.
people talk about an EMS fire tax, a safety tax, but I don't know if we're smart enough to say, we want this much a tax dedicated to that forever. You know, it's the same people paying the bill. If it goes up this year, whatever we said, 8, 10 million, that's what it's paying for, primarily. That's the difference in our budget. And I think we need it. That was in your email last night, Western PA, and that was one of the things that said in the email, was if you want more, you gotta pay for it.
Yeah, it was an interesting article
was.
that I'd found that I'd sent the fellow commissioners that I had sent to me, and it was basically just a story from a town in Western PA who has a fire department, but do they really have a fire department? And it was a discussion about that, so.
Well,
yeah.
we think we're rural, they're rural.
Yes, yes.
We're not rural.
Yes.
Not
They're
compared to
more rural.
Capital R.
rural. That's an easy.
But yeah, no, I mean, that was interesting, but that was kind of the moral of the story is if you want more response, you're gonna have to start paying for it. And that's where we are.
Up until the transition, I believe, the funding we gave to Visa was about $14 million.
Sounds right.
And now, when you count Visa and not counting length of service
5.
awards, you're at 8, 21, and 5, basically, so, yeah, well, whatever all that adds up to. 26 plus 8 is 30,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
And that was just 3 years ago.
Heidi, for the sake of example, could you please put up the recordation tax increase and the property tax increase?
This property tax rate?
Yes, please, thank you.
You took out the 12, clearly took out the 12 million. Yeah.
Position and you're balanced.
And could you slide over a couple years too, please?
That makes 29 and 30 look way less scary, but through 28, it's very doable. What is the assessment, third of the county for this year? Eldersburg?
The year to come?
Yeah.
South Carroll.
And when does that happen?
We usually hear right around January 1st.
Okay.
So the assessment work happens through the summer.
Yeah, but we hear it then. And you realize this, so I'm sure it's in the budget, but that's the biggest area. But we just don't know if it's gonna jump up like Tonytown did.
Yes, and our expectation right now is that it will not go up as much. You know, if you look at the rapid increases in home prices and try and match it up to when different areas got assessed, our thinking is that South Carroll caught part of that growth, but not all of that growth. Of course, that's an inexact science for sure, but, so the Westminster in the Northwest was 24%, and we built in 15% for South Carroll, right?
Sounds right.
So in theory, you had it 5% per year for 3 years.
Yes,
Now, so if Eldersburg's over 5, you're gonna get 5.
right. Well, if it's over 15, we get 5. Because it's phased in
Each
over
year.
3 years.
Each year, but if it's 8, you still only get 5 the first year, right?
If it's 8, we'll only get 2 3/4 or,
Oh, okay, it's a percentage, it's not a maximum.
right, the
Oh.
phase-in happens before the homestead
Gotcha.
tax credit.
Yeah,
So the homestead tax credit only comes into play if we have an assessment that exceeds 15%.
gotcha.
Although it's not as easy as that, though, because to the extent that we didn't get everything when it did exceed 15, we would get some of that. So it might look more like you were saying, but not because of that year's assessment,
gotcha.
previous year's assessments.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you have a bank, it draws from that, yeah, sort of.
And I worry that we raise taxes, but then I worry next on how we spread it between recordation income and property. It just seems, it almost seems like it's not fair to do something with each of the 3.
I had Hattie put up just the 2 of them. the
Yeah,
record-
no, but I'm just saying.
So you're saying put in income as well? Westminster did 12 cents or whatever.
Last tax increase, I think, was over 10 years ago.
It's huge.
It was a pretty monstrous, when it was before the 10 years ago, but it was a number of years back.
We don't have the amount, but Heidi did get that. They haven't increased since 2019.
At least 2019.
They have not increased, okay. It's 5 years. That's just a lot of money, wow.
And I don't know where they'd be if Annapolis wasn't helping them with grants on this fiber. I don't
Did
know
you
if
put in the,
homeowners could
income?
Pay for it.
That's what that looks like.
But they've been, the last 2 years, they've done okay with that. So what's the difference here?
That, I asked her just to throw in the income tax to see what it would look like.
And take out recordation? or
No,
leave-
so it's all 3,
all
recordation,
3? So
property,
what's
and
this
income.
year?
What's that?
Okay, because it was
Yeah.
a negative 50 or something before
And
that.
the current income tax is 3.03%. That brings it up to 3.05%.
And what would be the actual income increase in taxes on somebody, say, making, I don't know, let's say 70,000 a year based off that?
With
Which is the income?
$15.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to split hairs, but we all know, depending on your income bracket, that has a significant effect on you. And granted, we can argue it's 15 and it could be, 2 cups of Starbucks, but a coffee, but I think I was reading last night, they said groceries is up 40% in the past year.
I know.
So if you're in, depending upon your income bracket and your expense basis, at $15 might be a lot more than $15.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
So now a challenge is, okay, looking at that, peeling some of that back, putting in some of that one-time funds, getting us comfortable to 28, through 27. How would we do that?
Well, if,
Knowing that,
maybe you need to do an
yeah.
example. If you took away income tax and put in an equal dollar amount of one-time money, what's that do to the future years? It gets us okay this year, but what's it do to the future years?
So Kenny, you want Heidi to remove the income tax?
It was only.
Well, one of them, I'm just thinking, one-time money fixes this year,
right.
but it makes it worse in the ongoing years.
Well, can't you take that money and put it across?
Yes, you can, but all you've done is a longer covering up what's wrong. You're still gonna hit a year where it doesn't
You
work.
might not have it, yeah.
And even
But-
right now, we don't know what our surpluses will be in future years, but if we have more typical years, we probably would be able to balance 26, but we probably would not be able to balance 27 using one-time
Right.
money. It just won't be an option anymore.
Yeah, what I was talking about is a mixture of the taxes and the one-time funds.
Okay, well, the taxes that you're proposing are already in
Right,
here.
right.
So the only variable would be what you do with the
One-time
one-time money.
And right now, there would be no reason to use it because,
Well, my worry is, if we do a raise in taxes, and we minimize it and use one-time money, 2 years from now, are we gonna be in a hole and have to do it again?
right,
If we're doing it, I wanna look at the next 3 years. And fiscal year 28, 3 million is fixable,
well, yeah.
but 10 million, I'm not so sure. We did it this year.
But if everything stayed the
do it
same,
without-
that 4.7 would go away. We zero it out. 600 plus 4.7, that would be added on to that 3 point whatever by the time you get there. We'd be increasing our reserve.
No, with this, but like I say, if you took out recordation and income and put that much
Oh.
one-time money in, it wouldn't be that
Then we'd
picture.
be,
Yeah, it
then
it
we'd
would
be back to where
an
we
uglier
were.
picture.
Right,
This,
yeah.
again, if we're wrong on EMS, next year now we got 700,000 because we need the 4 million. It's, I don't know.
So Heidi, for the sake of example, could you remove the income tax increase?
That left you with about $50,000 in the hole.
So for FY '25, then the suggestion, I guess at this point, if this is the example, then we use surplus revenue to plug the gap in FY '25, save everything we can from FY '26, and start feeding surplus into the outgoing years, the out years.
We'll slide over.
I would argue against using surplus in the future years. I mean, that is the picture. There's no reason, we gain nothing by hiding. All we do is give ourselves a sense of confidence that everything is okay when it's not. Yep.
Yeah, we would leave it just like this.
'28 gets tricky, and then 29 and 30 are certainly obstacles, to put it mildly.
And, you know, as you look out several years, we know that these projections are wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we know what these numbers are. And it could be the revenue picture gets brighter and fixes 28 for you. But it's also possible that things are not as good as we've built into this, and the numbers get worse on you. But by the time we get there, it'll be something different than that.
Out of curiosity, I mean, I know we have it in our ability to amend the budget. Do we have it within our ability to say, let's, for the sake of argument, we say we reinstitute the recordation tax, or we raise it by $1. Do we have it in our authority to undo that
During the year,
during the fiscal year, rather than waiting until the beginning of the next budget year? So for example, if we say, to Commissioner Guerin's point from earlier, we get to August and we say, okay, well, our revenue picture looks a lot better than we thought it was going to, and so we don't need the recordation tax this year. Do we have the ability to undo that?
I don't know. That's a question that has never come up before. So, you know, if we raise a tax, there are things we have to do to inform other people that the tax rate is going up. During the year, for the tax rate to go down, I don't know. With income tax and property tax, I would guess the answer is no, because SDAT and the comptroller are responsible for collecting that. Recordation, I'm not sure. We can try and find out.
I'd certainly be interested to know that. I mean, to me, it just seems to me, and again, I could be completely wrong, because again, it's something I've never considered myself either, but if we certainly have the ability to amend the budget, then what about amending how we fund the budget? I mean, we couldn't raise a tax, say, in September or something, but if we wanted to
No, you couldn't.
right, if we wanted to lower a tax rate, or to
You couldn't raise it during the year.
right, that's what I'm saying, but
Oh,
to,
okay.
I mean, and when I say talk about amending the budget, I mean saying, okay, well, you know, we're going to allocate an additional $1,000 for, I don't know, nameplates or something. But,
But even, you know, conceptually on the idea of reducing recordation during the year, I'd say, at what point would you decide that it's time to do that with confidence? And I would think it would be later in the year than earlier in the year, so then you'd be left with how much is gained by changing it rather than just doing it with the next budget.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I say, Westminster did it, bumped it pretty hard, and then number of years later reduced it a little, but I think you almost have to hopefully not get in a panic and wait a couple years before you adjust it, and I'm not sure. I thought it was wrong when the commissioners cut it. Now, I don't know if we'd have had it all this time, would it have been wasted away and wouldn't help us now, or would it? I'm not sure, but I hate to see it cut. And again, it's like the raise, people were barely gonna know, they notice their assessment more than their notice this in their tax bill. What else?
was there anything, and remind me, was there anything we wanted to talk about where we needed the additional information, or did we have everything that we wanted to talk about today?
I don't know, I had my request
Right.
about the positions. Other than that, I don't know. That's a good, I don't know. Gentlemen, I don't know if you had any other.
I think
Asks.
we've provided everything we were asked for.
Yeah, I think the question on the positions and
So that'll save, we'll
I
save
don't know
that
what
for
we
Thursday.
haven't beat up yet, you know, it's, I don't know how much more we can find.
Procedurally, I went back and looked at last year's session, and even into mid-May, we were still discussing the budget. So the proposed budget is due out on the 23rd, but we've got additional sessions built into May.
When
Yes,
is the
to
public-
discuss if there's anything you want to change from the proposed budget for the adopted.
After the public
Do
hearing.
we do that before the public hearing, or we wait?
After.
We do it after, so when's that, May 8th? May?
6th.
6th?
Hearing's the 6th. May 6th.
May 6th. So we'll have a meeting after that to talk about who beat us up at night.
Okay, and on changes between the proposed and the adopted, you can do it. Just want you to be conscious of some changes are harder to capture in the budget than other. And of course, the closer we get to the adoption date, the more problem it becomes for us to actually capture that. And we have, the adopted budget has to be released by the last day of, well, that's right. When do we have to have them in the library?
For adopted, in the library, we don't have to have it till later, but it has to be adopted by the end of May.
Right, but there's a time attached to when it has to be available to the public. So there's not a lot of,
Well, after May
Time.
6th, how long do you have?
well, for us, we're going to be driven by the date you adopt the budget, which is like the 23rd.
Sounds right.
23rd, you're scheduled to adopt the budget.
So it's 2
So then we
weeks.
have the time between there
Yeah.
and the end of the month to capture all the changes. In some years, that's not difficult, but sometimes, late changes get made that have a lot that needs to change. And the biggest one, of course, and not to put this idea in your mind, but if you decide to raise taxes and then decide to undo that at the adopted budget, that becomes a big problem for us.
So Thursday, we need to be done until after May 6th. And
Yes, that is my,
you're shaking your head harder than
my big wish that, yes, we're done by then.
You-
I know
there
what
was
my
no
Friday
doubt.
looks
There
like.
was no doubt in your answer. Oh, my. So that's probably when we met last year.
That's what I was trying to, you and I
Yeah.
talked about that, just
Yeah.
couldn't remember. But we did go into May, and
Yep.
we're still going around in circles a little bit, and finally figured it out.
So anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anything else? You look hesitant.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we're stopping.
Well, I keep asking anything else and nobody says
I
anything.
know.
So,
I'm just trying to think, I mean,
that,
I understand we want to have that conversation about positions, and I definitely,
Yep.
like I said, I respect that. The impact that that's going to have is, at most, a few $100,000, at most. So we're still dealing with a very daunting number. And so I don't know what's going to change between now and then on how we're going to address that $10 million or $9 million something dollars. So my thought is, why not figure out how to address it and address it now? And then from that, if we get input from others, that's fine. Or we can think through it a little bit harder, but we should
Well-
look at making a commitment to saying, how do we want to address a $10 million deficit?
well, I think, how, what's on the screen? How hard is that to print?
Not hard.
The all 5 years. Could we, and holler guys, could we, and maybe just email us, a copy as is, a copy with 3 cents property tax,
Dollar recordation,
a dollar
a dollar recordation.
recordation and something on income or not? And then do one with, I think, and whatever the smallest income, just so it's on there.
You know, just doing a pulse check. I mean, where do we stand? Where do we think we're moving towards? You know?
Well, I think do one more thing, do just a property tax and patch in one-time money to make it zero. And I'd like to look at how all the years compare with those three different scenarios. Where we are today, where we are if we raise 3 taxes, where we are if we, or I don't care, where we are if we use 10 million in one-time money. Whatever you guys think.
So you're looking at different scenarios.
Yeah, I think so. It's, she changes them well, but I can't remember what's in all the years. And I think I'd like to look at that and think about that. And probably even talk to some people.
Yeah, I'd like to see the scenarios too.
I've been told not to say this, but I could like go on Facebook and ask all my haters which way they like. So is that too much?
So one scenario as is, one scenario with 3-cent property tax, $1 for recordation, and the smallest LIT amount, and a third scenario with the property tax increase of 3 cents, plus one-time funding to make FY25 equal 0. We can get that to you.
Make sense?
And did you also suggest when we're just using one-time money to see
We
how that?
could. I personally think that would be ridiculous, but doesn't mean we can't look at it. Do you mind?
Okay, I suggest, you know, with where we are now and with property tax only, it'd probably be more useful to leave the negative on the bottom. Then you'll know that's how much one-time money that you would have to use. If we put the one-time money in, you won't be able to see it.
But what's the one-time money do to the future years?
Nothing.
It won't change them.
No.
So I can look at this and say, if we stuck 10 million in 1 million, next year would still be 7 in a hole. Okay, then yes, I'm fine with that. If it's I tell you, by next year, I might learn something, maybe. Okay, is that, I have a motion and a second still, and we had further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.